Okay, let's get started on the legs for the character. And as you will see here, I've already created a little animation on my character's leg just to test every part of the leg and the foot also. So let's take a closer look at what the deformations are looking like. Let's turn off overlay drawing again. And as you can see, again, as the leg comes up, we see a lot of extra movement on the torso area. And here we see a little bit of flattening and also movement on the opposite leg a little bit here. So we'll need to fix that. Also, for the buttocks, it seems that he's pulling a lot more weight than he should in this area, which also needs fixing. So yes, we definitely need to work on getting rid of all these deformations. They're definitely not supposed to happen that way. So it looks like that's going to be mostly the bulk of the work for this area. And then let's see what we have here for this rotation. It appears that we might have the same problem with the deformer in this area. He might be dynamically parented to the joint instead of to the node that he would need to be. So we're gonna check that out. Over here on the knee, it doesn't look too bad. Actually looks pretty decent. A little bit of loss of volume in this area. We're gonna work on that and maybe shape the knee a little bit better. But other than that, things look okay. And then for the foot, let's see. There's a lot more movement in the lower leg loops than we should probably have, so we're gonna also work on those. And the toes definitely need work, because instead of rotating, they look like they're shrinking right now, which probably means that a lot of the vertices over here are weighted towards the foot mostly, instead of towards the toes. And I think I'm gonna do one extra rotation right there. Let's increase our frame count. Yeah, something like that. Let's say I just want to test the rotation of the lower leg. Oh, actually, I can just do that by hand. Those seem to be okay. We can probably work on this part over here to get the boot to behave a little bit better. We'll see. We'll see in a second. Let's just keyframe that. So let's create a couple of keyframes. There you go. That should do it. Alright, so let's get started. We're gonna definitely start over here. So let's bring up again the overlay drawing so we can more easily select the deformers. And actually this guy is gonna get in the way. So let's just find them here on the items list. So here it is, the thigh. Alright. The first thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to check what he is dynamically parented to, because I have the feeling he's again not parented to the right object, just as we fixed the arm. So let's open here and select the input items. Yeah, he's dynamically parented to the joint. So let's fix that. Let's select that dynamic parent node and delete it. And let's instead dynamically parent to our friend over here. And that should do it. Let's check that again. Over there it's perfect. Okay, that's much better. As you can see, as he turns his knee, this part remains more stable. And we can still get a little bit of movement here on the rear of the character, but we're going to do that by adding another muscle simulating joint later on. So the rest looks okay. Let's get started with the obvious part, all this. So let's go ahead and select the mesh. And we're going to select a few loops over here. Yeah. And let's adjust the weights on those. I'm going to leave a little bit of weight down here so we can see part of the torso moving, but not too much. And then let's also adjust this one. Much better. And finally this one. And we want to keep an eye on this sort of crease we have here. And actually this part, we're going to have to smooth it out a little bit better against the rest of the torso. Okay. We're going to do that when we get to the working on the hips of the character. We also want to get rid of the influences over here. This leg should not be pulling that much weight around there. So let's go select some vertices. And let's adjust the weights there. We want to see some movement over here because lifting your legs should pull the clothing over there, but we don't want to see too much. And let's also get rid of the weights on probably these loops over here. As you can see, there was some weight over there. I hope there's no more weights. No, there's nothing else. Let's take a look at the back of the character. Yeah, there's also some weights over here that we should not have, definitely. I'm gonna get rid of all this loop. I was gonna do it separately, but well, we're already there. There you go. That's better. Okay. Now let's adjust some of the weights over here so that this part doesn't get pulled as much. So let's select some vertices in this area and adjust those. As you can see, we get a lot of the original shape back. Let's also adjust these guys. And let's adjust these guys over here. And this one. That's much better. Let's also do that one. We don't want to see zero values either. There should be some movement, because otherwise you end up with a really divided character. You don't want to see that. It can actually bleed a little bit into the opposite side of the character too, as I did right here. so that looks better. Let's see what it means in terms of movement. You always want to check things in motion. Yeah, that's a lot better. Let's see it from this angle. Yeah. Now when he pulls his leg back, as you can see, since we have no more influence on the rear of the character, we get this crease right there. But as I said, I'm not going to concern myself over that right now because we're going to solve that anyway with an extra joint. Same goes for this deformation right here. This is basically not very nice. So I'm going to come back to this once we get to the torso and working on the hips area and try to fix this as much as possible. But ultimately, we might use corrective morphing to fix it. And then we have the twist over here. Twist looks okay. And then this, we can work on that now. Because as you can see, these two edge loops right there are shrinking quite a bit when the leg rotates. So let's work on those next. Let's select our deformer. That seems to be the joint though. There you go. Is that it? Let's go find it. No, that's selected again. Apparently. There you go. That's the one we want. Plus the mesh. And as you can see, there's some influence right there. Let's get rid of those. Up to here probably. So let's start. Yeah. And now we can do this one a lot less. Something like that. Not so much. Somewhere over there. Yeah. And now let's select some of the vertices at the bottom and increase the weight on those to get the knee to retain its shape better. So let's see what that looks like. Now we just need to adjust the neighboring vertices a little bit so that you don't get that much of a forced curve over there. Yeah, that looks better. All right. Now let's work on the foot. Let's deselect over here. This guy. Oh, I have a joint selected. Let's deselect that. Okay. All right, so let's get rid of some of the weight that we have over there at the as you can see, it goes up. Well, some of the movement comes from the actual deformers on the lower part of the leg, so that's good. I'm still gonna go and select quite a few loops over here and adjust the weights on all of them a little bit like that. That looks better. Maybe also this guy needs to be less influenced. Not so much though. You don't want to end up with something that looks like you broke the foot right there. Okay. The twisting looks okay. And finally, as you can see, the toes, this area is really influenced by the foot. So we definitely don't want that. So let's select these edges from this perspective. Actually, let's go to vertices, and I'm just going to select everything here. I'm just going to deselect the ones on the other foot since we don't really need them. And let's go back to the frame where he flexes and adjust those weights. And as you can see, when they go down to 0, we really get a very different deformation there. So now we need to work on that a little bit. Let's get this loop right here and adjust that one. And let's see what kind of weights we have for the toes. Here it is, the toes deformer. Let's select the vertices in front and adjust the weights. They're all at 100%. So that looks to be okay. And what we're going to do is take some weight off this loop because it's giving us a lot of problems. But instead of just decreasing it, I'm going to add it to the foot joint. So let's add some weight over there. And let's also add a little bit of weight over here again. Now, this pose is obviously exaggerated. That's a big bend on the toes right there. He probably won't be doing that as much. So just to test it out, I'm gonna rotate this manually. That appears to be acceptable, except there's also some movement over here at the top of the boot. So let's get that fixed. Yeah, we don't want to see any of that. Here a little bit. But actually what I'm going to do is reduce the ones for the bottom of the shoe as much as possible. Oops. Wrong button. There you go. That's better. So we see some movement at the top of the foot when he flexes his toes, but nothing for the sole of the boot and this area. We really don't want to see any movement over there. Now it appears that these guys are still moving a bit. So let's take a look at what's influencing them, and we're gonna go and use our utility palette. Let's check. We have the foot weight is 100%, and the toes 0%. Well, that's kind of funny. Oh yes, of course. I mean, the foot with the deformer is over there. Let's see if there's anything else. Nope. Nothing. So it appears that that movement is basically maybe a result of the subdivision surface adapting to the changing topology. Well, not changing topology, but to the actual vertices that are neighboring this area moving around. So I guess we're done with the leg of the character. I will just probably look a little bit into where's the leg lower twist here. Let's see what we can do about this rotation right there. One thing we could do would be to have all the upper part of the boot really weighted towards this deformer right here, and then the rest of the leg weighted towards this guy and this guy. So that way you get a more rigid geometry on this part of the leg. Let's see which parts are being influenced by the different deformers. So this guy is really influencing this part. Maybe I'm gonna leave that like that and just have this guy influence more these loops right here. Let's see what happens. I'm gonna wrap those guys, and before I do anything, I'm just gonna save my file in case I don't like what I get, and really weight those to this lower, this upper deformer right there. So that's done. And actually, let's also do, should this be part of the boot or of the leg? I'm gonna go, actually I'm gonna leave this one like that. That's gonna be my transition point. And let's just decrease the weight here. There you go. Oops. Okay. And let's make sure that our next deformer, that's perfect. So as you can see, what you get is a better difference between the boot of the character and the actual leg geometry. Now, in the case of this character, this actually doesn't provide that much of an advantage, because for this to be more effective, this edge loop right there would need to be beveled and brought into the leg, so that you actually have part of the boot geometry going in and then part of the leg geometry coming out, and that would be a lot more effective. But since this is the way this character was modeled, we're just going to stick to that. And that's it. We could have done the same for the arm over here if you so wanted, but I guess we're done. This is all we wanted to do for the leg, and then in the next video we're gonna work on the torso and neck of the character. So let's keep going. Okay, welcome back. Let's continue. So what we have left to do is basically the torso and neck areas of our character. But before jumping into this area, there's something I want to do rather quickly, which is I want to take all the weight maps that we've already worked on this side of the character, which is mainly the arms and leg, and I want to mirror them to the other side of the character. And the idea would be that I want to have that data already across, so that in areas where the limbs meet the torso, which is here at the shoulders and over here, I would have already the correct weight, so I can have a better idea of what the deformations for the torso are really looking like. Of course, this is going to be mostly an iterative process where, as I change weighting on the torso, I'll probably need to refine those areas back again and then remirror. But that's okay. I just want to take care of that now and have that done. So let's see how we're gonna go about that. I'm gonna hide the rig, and I'm actually also gonna hide the deformers. We don't need them for this part of the process. And let's get back our palettes, the data list palette down here, and let's get the utility palette. Oops, looks like I toggled it. Oh yeah, that's the utility one, and the data lists. There you go. So what I'm gonna do is first I am going to examine the weight maps that my character has and make sure I have not made any mistakes in the vertices that I have weighted. Maybe I've missed some in a few places where I don't really want them. So let's check them out. And to do that, that's where the utility palette comes in really handy. We've been using mostly the info section of the of our tool to check out vertex weights and stuff like that, and see how we are weighting things. But in this case, what we're going to do is use the statistics area of the tool. And once you go there, you can expand the vertex map category for vertices. And you will see a list of all the vertex maps that you have on your mesh. And the nice thing is you can use these plus and minus signs to select vertices that are affected by the weight map that you have selected. So for example, I clicked on the hip deformer weight map, and as you can see, it selected all these vertices. And if I select the weight map itself, I'll see that this is the area that I'm looking at. So I'm just gonna go and check all my weight maps on the right side. For example, here the right thigh. First, let's deselect these and see if there's any problems. And as you can see, there is one. I have this stray vertex right here. So what I'm going to do is just select that guy and bring up the adjust weights tool, and yeah, it has some weight right there. So let's bring it down to 0, and he's gone. Now I should be able to select the vertices again, and he doesn't get selected, which is great. And I'm going to continue with this other weight map. Oops, this is the left side. And as you can see, there's some weights down here that got selected. So let's deselect the ones we want to keep. Oops. And let's leave selected the ones that should not be affected. And let's again adjust them down to 0. And we can continue doing this. Let's check the foot, for example. This is the other one. As you can see, the selections are additive. So if you had anything selected, it stays selected, and then it selects all the other vertices you're trying to select. So I'm just going to go on checking every weight map and making sure, there you go, more stray vertices. I just want to make sure that there's nothing selected that I don't want affected by these weight maps. So let me do the rest of the character, and I'm going to be right back as soon as I'm done. Okay, I'm done. I cleaned up my weight maps, and indeed there was quite a bit of cleaning up to do because we had already called weights before on each weight map below 1%, but there were still some weights left here and there that were above 1% that I didn't want to have. So I just went through all the weight maps on the right side of the character and cleaned those up. So everything is looking pretty good at the moment. And now we're ready to mirror. Now, mirroring is something that we are going to do in 2 different ways. I'm going to show you 2 ways of doing it. And one is with the stock out-of-the-box tools in Modo. And another one is using a third-party tool. And this is the first time we introduce a third-party tool in this course. So far, we've been doing pretty well with the Modo tools. Of course, there are many third-party tools and scripts out there that you can use that are free, that will speed up some workflows. But so far, we've been just doing with the Modo tools. However, in the case of this workflow that we're going to get into right now, which is mirroring weight maps, the stock Modo tools are not as reliable, so we're going to be using a third-party tool to get this process done. But before doing that, I'm going to show you how it would be done using the Modo tools, and I'm going to talk a little bit about why we are not going to be relying on that workflow exclusively this time. So let's go back and select this weight map. Let's start, for example, right here with the right thigh, okay, which is the upper part of the thigh, actually, where the thigh joins the pelvis. And as you can see, this is the weight map that we have already worked on. As you can see, the weights are edited. And if we check the left thigh, the left thigh is not touched at all yet. You get this uniform red blob of weight on this area of the character, and this is pretty normal when you do a heat bind. You get some bleeding on the mesh from different parts. So how would we go about taking the weights that we've already worked on from one side of the character and bringing them over to the other side, so we don't have to redo all the work? And even if we did, we would very likely not get an identical result. So this is how we would go about it. You would select first, let's say that this is the weight map we want to mirror. The first thing you have to do is tell Modo across which axes you want to mirror the data. And in this case, we want to mirror across the x-axis. So that's the direction we're mirroring on. So let's do a symmetry x operation here. You need to have this selected. And once that's done, you have to go into the vertex map menu, and you can select the mirror tool. Okay, so the mirror tool is going to ask you which map you are mirroring. By default, nothing will be selected here, except we know it's the right thigh, so you can just go into the list and select your right thigh map. And the tool requires a destination map, and in this case, this tool cannot mirror onto existing weight maps. You have to create a new one. So ideally, we would like to mirror directly into the left thigh weight map, but in this case, we're just going to do with a temporary weight map. We're going to call it temp thigh R, for example, and you click on OK. And if you scroll down, you'll find your new weight map over there. So let's select it and see what we got. So this is the mirror data, and at first sight it does look pretty okay, but there is one detail that I discovered that can happen sometimes when mirroring weight maps this way, and it is, let's go back to our original weight map, our thigh. I want you to pay a close look at the vertices sitting exactly down the center line of the character, which means that they're at 0 on the x-axis, which is the axis we're mirroring on. As you can see in the original map, the original weight map, it's okay, but the mirror is not. There's all these vertices are missing their weight. So let's see if that's an actual problem on the weight map. Let's select the vertices, and yeah, there's no weight on these vertices at all. So I guess you could just go and paint the weights or smooth these verts for the weight map, and that would be not too much of a problem, which is something you can do if you ever see this problem happening. So that's pretty acceptable. In this case, I'm just going to ignore this for a second, and I am going to proceed with the rest of the workflow so you can see what comes next. So the next part would be taking this data and moving it over to the correct weight map. So you can do that by selecting your temp weight map, and then you would go to vertex map, copy, and the copy tool is going to ask you which type of map you're dealing with. And there's many types. In our case, we're just going to accept the default, which is a weight map. Click on OK. And then let's go to the weight map we are trying to modify, which is the left thigh, and just go vertex map, paste. And we again select the type of data we're pasting. We click on OK. So there you go. The data is transferred, but another funny side effect happened, which is if you look closely, there's some color bleed over here, which means that apparently there's some vertices that got weight that shouldn't have. And as you can see, we have some vertices down the center line that got some weight on them. And where these values are coming from, I really don't know. It looks to me as a bug. But again, if you just want to continue using this workflow, it's fine. All you will have to do is select the vertices that should not have any weight on them and then bring them down to 0. Okay, so that would be the way to go about it. Now, I'm going to show you another way of doing the mirroring process with a different tool. Let me just undo all the stuff we did. So here's the copy, the paste. So I'm going to undo just before copying. There you go. And I'm going to go to my temporary weight map that we created. I'm going to delete it. Okay, so we're basically starting from where we were before. Let's get rid of the undo history. And what we are going to do is we're going to use a third-party tool, which is it's absolutely free. You can find it out there. It's a script called the Ethereum Weight Tools. Once you've installed it, it's going to create this button on your UI. And let me open up the popover by holding Alt and clicking on the button. And it's a set of tools that aid a lot in the weighting process. Now, we haven't really used anything like this so far. We've been doing well with the stock tools, but this script does have a few shortcuts for some stuff you might find yourself doing quite often. So it's pretty handy to have either way. You can just go and Google the name of the tool and you'll get the correct download link. In this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how you can use this tool to mirror the weight maps across. And the way it works is the following. You have here your mirror buttons for each axis. And if I display the tooltip, you'll see that for different weight maps, what you have to do is select the vertices that you want the mirrored values to be on. Well, the source ones, the ones you're mirroring from, then your source weight map, and then destination weight map. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to select our right thigh weight map right there. And then, you know, we need the vertices from those. So you would think, okay, I am going to just select those vertices and then my destination weight map. Now, there is a thing you need to be aware of when you're doing this. This means that you're going to be, let's select the other weight map. You're going to be dealing with the data of only these vertices over here. So the values on these guys are going to be mirrored. But by default, the tool will not overwrite all the vertex values being stored by our left weight map, which is all this. The way the tool works is it does sort of a replace operation only on the selected vertices. So this means it would go and find the opposite vertices of all these guys and write values on all of them. But all the other vertices that are like going all the way up to this area of the torso, those would be left intact. So you would not get, you would not erase the values in those vertices. So to do that, what we do is I'm going to select the vertices of the entire mesh. So that way, anything that is actually a 0 will mirror a 0 on the other side. So let's try it that way. I have all the vertices selected. I'm going to select my source weight map and my destination. And I'm going to click on the mirror X button. And the operation is successful. As you can see, we have our weight map weighted the way we needed it. And you can just check by alternating your selections from one to the other. And the tool did a great job of transferring the weights from one side of the mesh to the other. So you can continue to do this for the rest of the character. You can go to the next, for example, to this weight map over here. And in this case, all I would need to do is maybe, I don't need to select the entire mesh. I can just select these guys. Oops, we need to turn off mirroring, because the left calf map, as you can see, doesn't have any more vertices that we would need to be concerned about. So I select the source, select the destination, mirror, and it's perfectly mirrored. As you can see, we have the same boundaries on both weight maps. So I'm gonna stop the video right here, and I'm just gonna continue mirroring the weights on my mesh, and I'm gonna come back when all these are done. As you can see, it's a very straightforward process. So I'll see you in a second. Okay, I'm done. I'm done with all the weight maps on the character, right side to left side. So let's check that out. Let's go to the deformers tab, and as you can see, we have this normalizing folder. If I select it, and let's close all of our palettes, you can see we have this color guide representation of all of our weight maps. And as you can see, the edits that we did on the right side are pretty much what we have on the left side. You can compare different regions of the character, and everything looks pretty good. So I think we can proceed to work on the torso, and then at the end we'll do a final pass to make sure all of our weights are working correctly. Oh, and while we're at it, let's rename this normalizing folder to body bind. There you go. Great. So far so good. Let's keep working on the torso of our character.